speaker will explain, because it is now 3 o'clock and we'll start with the last presentation for today on licensing. As I said before, €1 billion market also in Germany, and one person who knows almost everything about this market in Germany is here, and he is consultant. He's also an expert of toys, which has to do with stationery. And he worked for Müller in Ulm for 11 years and offered his expertise. Then 10 years ago, he established PH International Consultant. This is Peter Hollo, and he is not only a consultant for the big players, but also for SMEs as today. So let's welcome Mr. Peter Hollo. Since 2016, you've been responsible for licensing international in Germany, and you will tell us now what this means. And the 11 billion that I talked about, is it dollars or euros? It's dollars. So, okay, so we continue. Well, thank you to everyone, for all of those who've appeared in such large numbers, and those that are in front of the screen. We have a live stream, so if you do have questions, then please, you can ask those after this presentation, or you can contact me. I'm looking forward to it. Licensing International, what is it? It is a traditional industrial association. And our mission is to support and accompany the global growth and expansion of the licensing business, to continuously professionalize the players in licensing by raising awareness for licensing business overall and its advantages. The association in all has about 1,300 members in more than 40 countries, and we best start with the basics. So what's licensing? You've heard a lot about licensing or talked about it, and it is an enormously big market, and certainly one of the hidden champions also in the stationery industry. When you walked through the halls here, you probably saw all kinds of licensed products that you caught your eye, and that most of this industry would probably not generate the sales it does generate without licenses. Licensing is a process to permit a third party, the licensee, to manufacture and sell products or services that show a brand, a character, or an image licensed by the owner, that's the licensor. So, in short, the emotional link between consumer and brand. But it's not only the emotional link, because licensed products have enormous scope and possibilities, because they change a product into a licensed product. A white T-shirt is a white T-shirt, but a Jack Daniels T-shirt or a Mickey Mouse T-shirt is something different. So licensing is not only for young people or for children, but it happens in very many different industries. It always is an image transfer of the brand to the generic product. And licensing opens up to you totally new target groups that you cannot reach with your normal products, or they might also bring back target groups that you've lost, that you would have never been able to tap again. And another point, and that is financially very interesting, is licensed products always have a lot of advance sales. because movies and books usually are advertised with an enormous advertising budget, and you don't have to bear those costs because the whole thing has created such a hype. It's so well known that you do not have to worry about it. So never forget that. Let's talk about a few figures. In 2019, the market was worth almost 3 billion US dollars, and we had about 11. These are old figures. We have, of course, the recent figures available for you, and the market grew. Also, during the times of COVID, it grew, so it was very stable. And where are these sales generated? Well, it will not surprise you that US and Canada are the biggest marketplace for licensing. This is where licensing comes from. And the next, the second largest is Western Europe, and then big distance to the next ones. Asia is big, and here especially Japan. Japan has this licensing culture. Germany in licensing is the fourth largest market. As again here, ahead of everybody is the United States and the UK, then Japan, and then next is Germany by sales. Sales by categories in retail. Where do the licenses come from? Of course, you will not be surprised, and it's obvious when you go over the fair. Entertainment and character licenses are the most frequent. And next is brands, trademarks, fashion, or sports. And then retail sales by product categories, where are most sales generated, and you might be surprised because the perception is different. The biggest category is textiles, and then second is toys, and then we take fashion accessories and textiles together. That is by far the biggest marketplace for licensed products. Now, basically, all of these markets are behaving in a similar way around the world. There are some national differences. In Germany, for instance, fashion and accessories is underrepresented. The average internationally is much higher, and home textiles is very underrepresented. But this is the wrong fair trade show to talk about this. Then strong in sports and music and video, we are above average, and it might be surprised because Germany is not well known for this. So we move on now to the process of licensing. There is always one licensor and one licensee. The licensor identifies potential licensees, draws up a plan for the next 3 to 5 years, what he wants to do with this license, and he identifies the retail partners. He is creative and thinks about what it may look like at the POS, start marketing measures, a brand guide, and the properties are built up, and there are a lot of money spent on this. And they also approach the retailers, at least to the big ones, in order to create an awareness for this license, so the licensees have it easier later on. And then operations, that's about the contracts and everything that goes with that. On the other hand, we have the licensee who behaves in a similar way. He also picks the types of licenses that suits him best, and he gets into contact with the licensor so the cooperation can work as smoothly as possible. And the best thing is if both partners are really working in the same direction. They also think about styling, and they're also creative, so these things can be transferred to his products. They also talk to their shops and retailers, and then in marketing, the licensor developed measures are discussed and then integrated and implemented. And of course, they talk to the retailers. And again, we have contracts and the legal side. Is somebody working with licenses, and do you know about the contracts? After this presentation, we'll certainly do this. Now, talking about the basic terms, there are some things, some keywords that are contained in each license agreement. So you enjoyed my colleague Christian Fortmann was here, who is a lawyer. I'm not, and he said very clearly, you have a contract, so everybody gets along well, and you will only need this contract when something is going wrong. And so you have to have certain items included. First of all, it must be defined what property is this about. The terms, when does it start, when does it end? Then the territory must be defined, because it makes a difference whether you have a license agreement for Germany or globally. There are different rights and duties and opportunities and finances related thereto. Then there is usually a list, a very detailed list, what products we're talking about. And working well with this will save you a lot of problems later on. The more precisely you have defined it, the better for everybody else. Then next point is exclusivity. May these cubes you're sitting on, may you brand them, or maybe are you the only one to brand it, or maybe your competitor may do that as well. That has to be established. Then the royalty rate, the percentage of your sales that you have to pay to the licensor later on, and the minimum guarantee. That simply is so we all take it seriously, because if you only do it by percentage, then everybody just says, well, didn't sell that much, and everything it didn't work out, so, and then you forget about it. No, all must commit to a certain target, and therefore there is a minimum amount. And then the payment terms in advance, usually there is an advance of 50% of the guarantee, and then you have to establish the sales channels. It used to be that once in the Wild West times of licensing 30 years ago, the licensor sold something to the licensee, and the licensee then took care of it. The only point was that not everybody is taking care well. So you might sell something and then say, go ahead and do it. But now, also the licensors, I will mention that later on again, are very keen that also the licensee is working very dutifully because the vital interests are concerned by this as well. Then we have something like a specific date. Well, will the products be made on presented on the market? You can't just say yes, I'll do something, but not commit to when. Then there are bookkeeping needs to be done. There will also be audits. The licensor usually has an audit to check the books of the licensee regarding the sales figures, so they see whether the figures they've been submitted, and normally the people are honest, because long-term cooperation is only possible when you are honest to your partner, and for the license that is also. And then the artwork is coordinated. How should it look on which product? And we heard that the licensors are now involving themselves much more in this process, and that is manufacturing. Of course, you can't have products made by slave labor, child labor somewhere, and our industry is very keen on this, because it is the right thing to do, and there are no two ways about it. It is the right thing to do. And secondly, just imagine you, one of the big players on the market, place, and suddenly it's disclosed that you, the big humanitarian, have people manufacture your wares by prisoners in a basement under terrible conditions. And then you can suffer enormous damage. So we are quite alert to see that all these standards are being complied with. And of course, there's a moral imperative to do so. So it is also says what rights, what law applies, because many of the agreements are made on international basis. So you have to establish whether which law governs, the German law or the US law. That's most important. Then there are also possibilities to ensure this, and each agreement has a beginning and an end, and you must say when does it run out and what happens then afterwards. Another important item is force majeure. What happens with force majeure? In recent years, we've seen that we all thought that we were safe, but some things changed. We can have force majeure also nowadays, and that should also be included in the standard terms. Now, this chart might wake up a lot of people. That is the royalty rates. But be careful. Licensing is a marketplace. Just because it says here for apparel you can get 10 to 14% a royalty fee, doesn't it mean that everybody can demand that? Because it's a simple thing. The more your significance is on the market is, the more demand there is for your brand, the better you can sell it. So that's a very simple thing. But it shows you a little bit that the different sectors are very different regarding royalties, and that's not surprising. For food and beverage, you have a low rate. But these are people that sometimes only have a margin of 3 to 4%. They cannot pay 20% royalty fee. It's impossible. Now, where do you find licensing? We talked a lot about products, but it's not about products only, that characters or licensing and brands will be on products. And you must know that not every product fits every license, and not every license goes well with you as an entrepreneur. So if you opt for a license, then you must look for the best possible match, if possible the perfect match. So the aspects of this license and its values must reflect or strengthen your corporate values and fit the products, and vice versa. Otherwise, it can be rather questionable. You cannot use everything for every product. This might sound trivial, but if you go into more detail, it becomes more complex. But we're not only talking about products. You see gambling, that cannot be underestimated. These gambling machines and everything that has to do with this is one field for licensing. We have location-based entertainment, all of these fun parks. They suffered a lot in the last 2 years, but basically it's a very interesting story. It's something that we have in Germany, but there are also location-based entertainment things. If you go through Asia, there are restaurants that are branded in a certain way. You can go to a Hello Kitty cafe or something like that. They really have the brand from A to Z. We don't do that in Germany the way we could. Then promotions. So if today you are an insurance company or an automotive club or something like that, you can, of course, with a right license, get an enormous attention for your own product and raise its value. We talked about apparel. It's one of the very big columns licensing is based on, and it's been around for a long time. Accessories, the same. You have to protect that together with apparel. And it says just put one license onto something is not good. It must really work. There is something called license slapping. That means just slap something onto something. That won't work. Automotive, just now, very important. If you look at the cooperation of Mini and Pokemon, that is very innovative and very successful. So with licensing, you can also move to such spheres and do more than seat covers. So there are great opportunities for cooperation. Food and beverage, lots of possibilities. When you go through your supermarket, you also see that there are more and more products that are branded, especially for the children, but you have to be careful here. There are pros and cons. And this is also very important. Footwear, very good for licensing. And toys, of course. One of the very big columns, the strong columns of licensing. And if you've been to the toy fair taking place in here on these premises, knows that in the toy fair there is one or more licensed product on each and every stand. Now, what you don't think of at first thought is the pet market. The pet market in Germany is enormous. It's still underestimated a lot, but if you have a cat, it is probably happy about this new brand that you bought for her. And this brings me to the end, and I'm looking forward to your questions. I'm happy that I could be here. If you have any questions, please ask me. Possibly I might be able to answer them. Otherwise, it would be very shameful. Well, I pass this on. Does anybody have a question about this? And I also ask our social media manager. We don't have any questions.
Might have been self-explanatory. On the other hand, it was really quite complex. No need to discuss it. Now, where do you see the major trends for upcoming years as far as licensing is concerned? Now, with trends, I believe in every industry, it's the same. Anyone who can reliably predict a trend, I mean, if I could do that, I wouldn't stand here. I would be sitting on my private island having cocktails on the beach. But what we can definitely say was a trend over the past few years was back to home sweet home. So anyone who offered licenses or products or licensed property where people were able to sit at home, playing with their children, nice and comfortable conversation at home. That was the kind of theme that was really popular over the past few years. And in the next few years, with a major decline in 2022, it will be just as important, because the more chaotic times outside of your home become, the more you want to withdraw to your own home, your own four walls, and take care of your own domestic things. And so also, gaming, even adults like licenses with games. Anybody, I mean, I missed it as a child. I'm too old, I guess, or as a young person, I had to do with the drei Fragezeichen, but still when you're 30 or 40, you might buy a T-shirt with a logo of drei Fragezeichen, a popular kids team in Germany. And that's why I mentioned it. So that's something relating to your childhood. That's the kind of market that one should not underestimate. So big business also in the future. Thank you very much for this very short course in Licensing International. Thank you to Peter Hollo. And of course, he will also be around for a couple of minutes, so you can speak to him at the counter in the entrance area if you have any questions.